Now, in keeping with this idea of everyday integration of distance and timing, I want to look now at how we can maneuver around other people and through crowds. So we saw that we wanted to look, if we were working with a person, at how we can integrate all of our basic proxemics and start to look at how we can have incongruent speeds between our hands and our foot movement, having hands moving slightly faster than the necessary pace of our feet. Now I want to look specifically at how I can control distance via the arm screw. In most of our basic mobility exercises, we reinforce this idea of screwing with the arm, placing the hand and rolling onto the wrist to the outer forearm. This is an action that we use for absorbing impact when falling. It's an action that we use for dealing with knife attacks. It's an action that we use in all manner of deflections, and it also relates the furling and unfurling of the arm to generating power and strikes. But that same snaking action can also be used almost like a rudder on a boat to navigate us through a crowd. So a very simple drill to do is to have an object in front of us, a column, a punching bag, it can be a door frame, and practice seeing how when I move I can use my hand to lead the way. I always think of the comic book example of Thor spinning that hammer and sending the hammer forward, pulling the person through. This is like my guide. This is like an anchor on a chain going over the side of the boat, guiding that chain like a snake, condemned to follow it. And I want to use that not only to physically demarcate my space, but also to indicate in the peripheral vision and the senses of the other people that I'm coming through. If I take the example of being on a metro or a train platform and having to get past people, you'll see a lot of people trying to scoosh in between two people rather sheepishly. But if I put my hand politely between them within their peripheral vision range, normally people will inadvertently react, and that gives me an opening to walk through. And I use this all the time when walking. So if I'm approaching somebody, as I move, I use my hand to snake around them. This is a great everyday example of how I can employ mobility. It can be done very manifestly if I'm crawling through people. It can be done at a more subtle level when I'm walking. But even at its most subtle, I'm always going to have a slight use of my arm. I very rarely walk without integrating my arms in some way. In fact, when I walk sometimes in the crowd at a distance, I will play with the position of my arm, drop baiting, just like we would in striking, leaving the hand behind to create a visual distraction, a visual density that will oftentimes cause the person to look down. It's not to be manipulative or to play tricks on people, but we can use this at a very low level to entrain other people and to observe how our actions create responses in a way that's completely harmless to them. We're not trying to make people trip or walk into walls. We're just trying to see if we can command attention. Much like standing on a street corner and looking up at something, invariably a certain amount of people who walk by will look up to see what's going on. And many of them will do it in a way that they're trying to conceal it. In exactly the same way, if I'm walking and then I leave my hand behind, you'll notice some people will look at certain actions, certain types of actions with the palm open, for example, will be more likely to command attention versus having the hand bladed and moving through. So if I place a hand up, it's a stopping action that's universally recognized. If I turn that blade, it sort of changes that density. So it's nothing to do with psychic energy or any sort of mysticism. It's just really a universal symbol, and we recognize it, and if the person sees it and registers it, sometimes they delay, sometimes the head moves back. So it's a very interesting thing to play with. But most of all, if I fail to get recognized by that individual and now they start to encroach on me or they inadvertently push into me and slam me, I'm better protected. I never want to walk close to people vulnerable and victimized. I always want to have that in a very commanding way. And because the arm is snaking, it's recruiting three-dimensional power. It's recruiting multiple groups of muscles in succession, which is far stronger than piston-like two-dimensional power. And what that means is that even if I'm smaller and somebody pushes into me, I'm more likely now to be able to protect myself and absorb it and move on. So in our general everyday walking, start to integrate how you can use that to navigate around objects, how I can use it to sort of contour, and we term it tracing around door frames, curtains, car doors, or other people on the street. You'll see a massive difference in the general grace and command presence of your body. It's one of the first essential steps in reducing the likelihood of being victimized yourself. I've written in some of my first writing that we should become confident pilots of our body, gracefully moving and understanding through our everyday life. And I've said that it's one of the great shames in life that people spend all of this time learning how to use their new iPhone or learning how to use their latest piece of technology, but they spend so little learning how to master the one piece of tech they have with them all the time, themselves. So in your walking and you're moving through your everyday life, in your getting off of the sofa, picking up the remote control, in your getting out of the car, and you're picking up a plate, and you're passing an object, try to achieve states of grace. It won't happen all the time. I stumble, I trip, I make mistakes like anybody else, guys. But it's like, imagining you're famous and you're kind of ready for the paparazzi. Act as if you're being watched. Act as if you're trying to monitor that efficiency. When you do this, it starts to bring mindfulness to your action. And mindfulness in the action brings improvement and efficiency in the action. It'll reduce the likelihood of accidental injuries, it'll reduce the likelihood of you being victimized, and it will fill you with a joyful energy and a command presence in your body that otherwise would not have been there.